Hey, what's up, guys? I'm gonna start introducing the 88 single cab stepside I've been working on for the past over a year. Now, what makes this truck special is that I bought it as a roller for $1,000. It was originally an automatic with a V6, but the previous owner had welded some engine mounts on there, and I don't know what engine it used to have, so I had to hack those solid mounts out and put some of the V8 ones in. I bought another truck, a 93, that had a V8 with a 5-speed on it. So I was like, you know what? The other truck is all clapped out. I don't want it, but I do want the powertrain. So I pulled out the driveshaft, the cross member, the transmission, the engine harness, and the engine, and other miscellaneous stuff here and there. And I kept all that stuff, and I brought it over to this guy. So this guy, I was like, I think it'd be better with that V8 in there. So once we got the V8 in there, the harness did not work. The main reason it didn't is because the way the cab, you see that bulkhead, that gray bulkhead connector? Well, the 93 has a different shape. So I was like, well, I can't use that, but I need a harness that's a manual one. And I also need a harness that mates up to the dash harness that's inside, which the 93 did not. So what we did is we went to a junkyard. We found a 91 5-speed. It had a V6 in it, but it was nonetheless still a 5-speed. We pulled the harness, and sure enough, it mated perfectly with the ones inside the dash and the bulkhead, which is this is the 91 harness in it. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Anyway, so I fixed up all the. I don't know what happened to the other truck, but that harness had a bunch of melted wires. We fixed all of them. Everything plugged in perfectly. Like I said, the bulkhead being the more important one. And over here we have every single plug where it needs to be, with the exception of this guy. It's like a red black with a brown. And I don't know where this one goes, but so far it hasn't messed with anything, so off it goes. So everything works fine. It turns on how it should. The timing is perfect. We did upgrade to the larger 38-inch radiator. I do need to get the new strut from it from Suburban, because you get this much not getting airflow from the fan, but that's fine. We can fix that later. We did change the battery cables out, negative to, more updated ones. Now when it comes to the actual engine, like I mentioned before, the harness, it mates up with everything, including this side temperature sensor and up into the bulkhead connectors over here, which I had to pull off, clean inside, repack it with some new sealant to prevent corrosion in there, and then put it back against the bulkhead. I did keep the manual transmission ECM, and I took out the one that this one had, which apparently was rebuilt. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but I did it anyway. So, oh yeah, add that to the list. I also kept the computer on top of the dash. Everything else is pretty much the way it should be. I did change the fuel pump out, so it has a new fuel pump. It has new lines, a new fuel filter. The TBI has been rebuilt. Everything is good. New power steering, new steering hose. The original box, this one does have the Jeep steering shaft upgrade, which is U-joints instead of the rag joint. And actually, for a truck that this whole suspension setup is all wonky, it drives pretty well, not gonna lie. So let's go into the inside. What's next? What did it take to make originally V6 automatic into a V8 standard? Alright, so we're gonna move on straight into the shifter column. So as you can see, I had to cut that hole out by hand and to be able to fit this shifter in. Now, I did mess up. From factory, the hole is not this big. What I did is that if you look underneath the cab, you can see that there's an outline from the factory where they would originally punch out the hole for this transmission, but do not cut around that outline. You're supposed to cut it from the outline at least a couple inches inwards, or like 1.5 inches all the way around. That way you have enough sheet metal to where you put the boot on Where's the boot at? Somewhere around here. Where the boot goes on, the screws go into something. Because right now when I put the boot on, it's just kind of there. It's not being held on by screws or anything because I cut too much material off. So that was my bad. Besides that, in order for your cup holder to work, you have to shift it 1.5 inches that way. That way when you're like in 5th gear, it doesn't butt into it. For the clutch pedal, this is also from that truck. Again, add that to the list. I took the clutch pedal and the bracket off. So to install this guy, it's pretty much straightforward since these trucks were mass produced. What I couldn't get to was the original mounting spots for the bracket. So what I ended up doing, I didn't want to take this whole dash off. This dash has no cracks in it and I want to keep it that way. So what I did is that I got this pedal, I put it where I needed it, screwed it up, and then I drilled through the bracket into the cab. I've removed this guy, which gives you enough space to put a socket in there, put the bolt through, and then tighten it, and that holds the bracket in just fine. All the harness is, original. This steering column I did have to change it out. So I think at some point this truck was stolen because there's a linkage down here. I'm not going to show you which one, but there's a linkage that was snipped off and I didn't realize that. We were wondering why when you turn the key nothing would happen. So I tried to fix it, but breaking down into these steering columns is actually really a big pain in the ass. And I just got this steering column for $80 and it works fine. When it comes to converting from an automatic to a manual, when you're in the automatic, you have to shift it from park to reverse because of the neutral safety switch, or I think that's what it's called. Once you make the whole conversion into a manual, let me see if I can zoom out. Access to zoom in. Yeah, once you do the conversion, once you leave this in park, that's all you need. You will never have to use it anymore. It's all about just holding the brake down, making sure it's not in gear, and going. This becomes irrelevant once you swap everything out. What I do want to do is take this pin out and take this thing out of the way, but that'll be for another day. Let's see what else we got. I think we covered mainly everything. Like I said, if you keep the drive shaft and the cross member from the donor truck, in my case they were both short bed single cabs, so everything was exactly the same. I kept the drive shaft. That allowed me just drop in to this powertrain and use that drive shaft from the other truck. Let me see what else we could cover that might help you guys out. That's pretty much it on that. Like I said, the main key points is to keep the computer, keep the wiring. If they're dissimilar years, like this is an 88 and the donor truck was a 93, even though they're within that year period, there's still minor differences that will make it easier or hard to do. In my case, since this was an 88, I had to make sure that bulkhead connector was the same, which was 88 to 91. Besides that, it would not work. So main key harness, if you get two trucks that are the same, then everything will be exactly the same swap. Computer, harness, cross member, drive shaft, engine, and clutch pedal. Oh yeah, that's what else I needed. So to do the manual system, you have to drill a hole through the bulkhead, which is already kind of templated out, and that the bracket for the clutch pedal on the other side inside the cab, it comes with the studs where these nuts bolt up to. So when I routed this guy, I routed underneath. It goes behind the engine and then underneath. It was a pre-filled system, but I've been having issues with it. So the push rod to engage the throttle bearing was too short, and it was eating the flywheel up because it wasn't disengaging properly. I got an adjustable push rod from Motor Speedway, or I forgot what it's called, and I adjusted it to be I think an inch or half an inch longer than the stock one, and it works perfect. So regarding everything else, I don't know if cruise control works because it's a manual. If it does, great. I haven't tried it, but it is wired up the way it should be. Everything else is about the same. Nothing else that I haven't mentioned. I just replaced all my pulleys and all that. But alright guys, this is all you need to convert, you know, a V6 automatic or V8 automatic into a V8 5-speed. If you start deviating different transmissions or different engines, and that starts getting different because now you have differences in where the engine's positioned. It could be further back, it could be further forward. So now you have changes in driveshaft, and then you have wiring changes. But to me, this was the easier way to get in a little bit more pep out of this truck before you know, getting into all the LS and all that. The transmission was beat up. Like I said, the other truck that it came out of was really hacked. So I need to source another NV3500 out. But the engine is beautiful. If anything, it has better oil pressure than my Blazer. This one holds around 50 psi, 40, and it sounds like a healthy motor. But alright guys, y'all take care. This is my little update on my single cab.